Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, is it cold enough for you? Right now, we're going through one of those rare late winter, early spring transition periods here in the Bay Area. And this is a very rare occurrence, but it does happen. And it, in my lifetime, it's happened many times over. And the first time that we actually had snow at a little over 100 feet even here in Oakland was back in 1974. I literally woke up and went outside, looked out the window because I had to walk my dog, and there was snow. And so on that day, that was in February, late January, early February. I was 14 years old. I was going to Frick Junior High, Frick Junior High still, because I had to walk to school. And then there were schools that actually couldn't open that day. They were the schools that were in the hills because the roads were too iced over and the buses couldn't get up the road to the school. So it does happen occasionally. And like I said, 1974 was first year that I experienced it. I was 14 years old. The next time that I truly experienced a major freeze, we actually had a major freeze here in the Bay Area. For those of you that lived in the Bay Area about right after the earthquake and 1990, it was actually the winter of 1990 going into the new year of 1991. It actually started right around Christmas. There was a big freeze that came down from the Arctic, and it just stayed and hovered over the Bay Area. And the most incredible thing that happened, because I temporarily lived in an apartment that the apartment's window and our backyard was that little waterway in the city of Alameda, and it's the original shoreline that was there. And then across the street is the South Shore Shopping Center of Alameda, because all of that is landfill. The original shoreline was where the apartments came to, and I actually caught a striped bass in there during my short time there. But the waterway, it's a saltwater waterway that goes in between all the homes on the eastern side of that canal. And it was interesting. It literally froze over. It iced over, literally. And salt water is extremely difficult to ice over like it was doing. And it affected they had to actually close the floodgates once it got to a certain point. And how I know it was frozen solid, because seagulls would literally come in for a crash landing. They expected to land in water. Instead, they hit ice and go sliding and tumbling. It was just the funniest thing to watching these seagulls trying to figure out what's happening. And then it lasted for a week, literally 1 week. And during that period from Christmas all the way into the middle of the new year in 1991, it was a plumber's paradise back then, because all your outdoor water lines were breaking. And so there was a copper pipe shortage and also a plumber shortage, because I was doing some work, and I actually put my crew to work. We put copper pipe on our trucks, and I sent them out the road, and they had work. People just literally, because there was such a demand and so many water pipes, because it's such a rare occurrence that we have a freezing period, that the pipes actually burst. Your pipes coming up out of the ground actually burst, and so you didn't have any water. And if that didn't burst, then the line in your yard burst, and so that had to be replaced. So there was an opportunity for a lot of plumbers. Whether they were honest or dishonest didn't matter, because folks needed their water and their pipe replaced. And so, like I said, it was like a gold rush, literally, in the plumbing industry and also for handy people that knew how to solder and had access to copper pipe, because during that wintertime, all the copper pipe was bought up. Literally, there was no copper pipe in Home Depot. Lowe's wasn't even in the area here. I think they might have been just opening in Union City, but I don't think they were open yet. But Home Depot was, and they were completely sold out. All of my plumbing supply houses in the Bay Area were also either sold out or nearly sold out. And so it was a boom period, and plumbing companies made a fortune during that freeze period. And it, like I said, it lasted for just slightly over a week. And in the waterway behind the apartment that I was at the time, the kids were feeding the birds. And so they were throwing food and foodstuffs out into the previously waterway, which is now an ice rink, but it wasn't thick enough for anybody to truly walk on. Because there were times where somebody would throw a large fruit out there and it would break through the ice. So it wasn't real thick ice. It was just very thin. And then when the freeze actually started moving on and things start warming up, and then the opposite happened. So now you've got some really confused seagulls back then, which were walking on the ice, helping themselves to all the foodstuffs that the neighborhood kids are throwing out on the ice patch there. And then also now the seagulls are falling into the water, so because they've not experienced ice, and that was a learning period. It was a very comedic time, just watching from my balcony, seagulls walking along trying to get to something, and all of a sudden they just fall right through the ice and have such a stunned look on their face. But these freezes do occur. And they come in large cycles. As like I said, 1974 was the first one that I remember here in Oakland, and our home was just about 250 foot elevation from sea level, so that was really low, and we had about 2 inches of snow on our lawn and a sidewalk, and cars coming down our street were also much more wary, because there was black ice on the road back then because of the dampness. But it was an interesting 1974, and I still had to walk to school. So I literally walked to school in the snow once. So it does happen. And folks, it is horrible on the folks that are forced to live on the streets. And I know about that because I've dealt with temperatures as low as 26 degrees, but that's only for an evening. And we're talking right today is the second day of a cold spell, and then we still have tomorrow to go through, and then the rain comes in. So it's not going to be good for the homeless folks. I've been there, done that, and it is miserable for those of you who say, well, they choose to live that way. No, we don't. That's a flat out lie, and that is so far from the truth. And so anyway, if you can, and you have somebody that is unhoused that you are friends with or know, try and get them something that will help keep them warm, hot thermos of coffee, something, because these are miserable days here, and I remember them very vividly. And they're not that often, but they do occur. And the folks, you folks that have the luxury of having a home, yeah, it's expensive. I get that too. It is terribly expensive during the winter, and then with this, it's going to make it even more expensive because you have to run that heater longer and if your home isn't up to insulation standards of today, you're just literally letting the heat right out your walls, because I know that for a fact. With when I was rebuilding my Santa Clara home, there was nothing in the walls. It was just the redwood boards, the lath, and um, air. And so there's no insulation. And that's why when I first acquired the home, my heating bill, my PG&E heating and electric bill, I wasn't using much electric, but I was using heat because I was working there throughout the day during the winter. And my heating was $440 in a month. That began in 2002. And so I made a lot of changes to the home, properly insulated the home, changed out all of the windows, putting in new Marvin double pane windows. And it made a huge difference, number one, in retaining heat, and number two, really insulating the home from the exterior noises, because our home was literally right across the street from a bus stop. And previously you could always hear the bus stopping, the brakes squealing, and then the bus starting up again. And so that was an annoyance until the windows were changed and the insulation was put in. And then once all that was done, the home was really warm. And so just saying, you can save a lot of money by updating your home. Yes, it does cost some money to do it, but that in the long run helps lower your future PG&E bills or utility bills, gas bills, electric bills. And having a home that large isn't necessarily that much needed anymore, because families are smaller. The 2,400 square foot home that I had was way too big for myself and my wife at the time. And if we were actually happier in our 900 square foot condo that was up the street that we sold, and then rolled that money over into the rehabbing of the family home down the street. So there were trade-offs, and like I said, a smaller space cost a lot less. As I remember, our condo, our heating bill was typically in about the 200 range during the winter. We didn't run the heater that much because we were on a top floor, and we had neighbors with heat underneath us, and then on 3 walls, and so we had plenty of warmth. We didn't have to run the heater that much, and then just normal cooking on top of the stovetop or in the oven was more than enough heat to heat a small 900 square foot 2-bed 2-bath condominium. So size matters, and in this case, there are a lot of big homes here in Oakland, and people are increasing the footprints of a lot of those homes. And what we need are new entry-level homes that are 800 square feet. That is the actual legal size for a single-family home. We used to call them shotgun homes, because literally you open one door and open the back door and you clear everything out of the house. But 800 square foot homes is what I'm talking about for entry-level homes. And we can put a lot of those in a lot of interesting spaces and create new neighborhoods. And we can actually even restore an old neighborhood that was destroyed back in the late 60s and 70s, also known as the 980 corridor here in Oakland. It was planned, that destruction was planned long in advance of the 60s. It actually started in 1947, but nothing actually moved forward on that project until there was a real demand for that extension. And that was caused by the Oakland Coliseum and Arena being created, and it was a faster way for folks to get from Contra Costa County to the Coliseum and not clog up Highway 580, which was going through more residential zones and business zones. And so by doing what they did, they actually created a fast way to exit Oakland, and that takes away your crowds very quickly from that exit those entertainment centers. So getting back to the cold, sorry about that, got off topic, but cold does occur here. Be sure to keep your animals indoors, because a lot of dogs and cats and animals are not equipped for this kind of cold that we're seeing right now, and a lot of harm can be done to them. If you have a dog that is like a Malamute or a Husky and has the thick coats, not so much a worry, because they're designed for that kind of cold and moisture. Whereas your other dogs, which are a common dog here in Oakland, is the Pit Bull Terriers. And the Pit Bulls are not designed for this kind of cold, so be sure to keep them indoors, because they're the ones that really suffer, because they have only a single coat, very short hair, and so it's just like you being outside naked, and they have very little cover. So be sure to also cover your tender plants, because we're getting near spring, and some of you are getting an early start with some of your early seedlings. So be sure to break those in and not leave them out in the cold. So these are just some tips to help you get through this miserable period. I've been there, seen the snow, and literally once even walked to school in the snow from one end of 64th Avenue to the other. Thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.